further ado, let's get this thing kicked off.
This is Upon Further Review.
After further review,
a little further.
With Chris Canty.
Yes, we got Upon Further Review, and it is a good one. Not going to have a lot of pomp and circumstance, but before we get to UFR, we have to, of course, bring you into the show. This is Unsportsmanlike on ESPN Radio, ESPN2, and ESPNU. She is the lovely Michelle Smallman. He is the Ocho, Evan Cohen. And I am the resident Super Bowl champ, Pat Costello. Let's get to it.
Number 3.
Move over, Sevy and Sir Nick. There's a new GOAT of European golfers. Rory McIlroy wins the 90th Masters, leading wire-to-wire to get back-to-back green jackets. He's the 4th player in the last 4 decades in the Masters to win by holding at least a share of the lead after each of the 4 rounds. He's the 4th player to win the Masters in consecutive years, joining Nick Faldo, Jack Nicklaus, and Tiger. He's the 15th player to win at least 6 majors. He's one of 6 players to complete the career Grand Slam. That's a lot of history being made for a golfer that just 2 seasons ago was known as the guy that would find a way to lose the big one. On Sunday, Rory held off Justin Rose, Scottie Scheffler, Russell Henley, and Cameron Young, who all surged at various points during the final round. Back-to-back birdies on Amen Corner, scrambled to save par on 16, and then the dramatic approach shot on 18, leading to a 2-putt for the win. Outstanding poise in the noise for Rory. And in a year where we've seen so many redemption arcs for high-profile athletes, from Sam Darnold to Lauren Betts in UCLA women's basketball to Kurt Cignetti in Indiana football, is there a better story than Rory's?
Interesting comp with all of those. So has Rory been good or bad at the Masters historically? Because now, you now have to say he ended up being great.
Chris Canty just went on Unsportsmanlike and made a bold take about Victor Wembanyama hitting the 65-game mark to qualify for postseason awards. And he said the 65-game threshold should stay exactly where it is. He said the best ability is availability. He said it's a professional athlete's job to stay healthy. He said it's as much of a skill as shooting or defending. And he said the fact that players are complaining about it tells the NBA league office that it's working. And I need to stop you right there, Chris. Because with all due respect to your Super Bowl ring and your years in the NFL, you are completely wrong on this one. Victor Wembanyama is right to question the 65-game rule. And the NBA got this one wrong. Let me break this down for you because nobody else will. The first 2 minutes of this video show the unsportsmanlike crew discussing Wembanyama hitting the 65-game threshold. He expressed relief about reaching the milestone, calling it a box that's been checked. But then he did something that most players do not do. He showed empathy for other players who were ineligible for postseason awards because they haven't played in enough games due to injury. He even floated the idea of a 75% game minimum instead of the current 80%, which is 65 games out of 82. And Chris Canty said it should stay at 80%. He said it should stay exactly where it is. And he said that if players are complaining about it, that means it's working. But here is the problem. The 65-game rule is not rewarding availability. It is punishing bad luck. And it is punishing players who get hurt doing things that have nothing to do with basketball. The hosts even brought up Joel Embiid missing games because of an appendectomy. Cade Cunningham missed games because of a collapsed lung, I believe. Those are not basketball-related injuries. Those are freak accidents. Those are things that no amount of conditioning, no amount of preparation, no amount of load management could have prevented. And under the current rule, a player could have a career year, could be the best player in the league for 64 games, and then get pneumonia or break a finger in a freak accident or have a family emergency, and miss the 65th game, and suddenly they are ineligible for All-NBA, for MVP, for Defensive Player of the Year. That is not fair. That is not logical. That is not serving the fans. And Wembanyama, who is 21 years old, understands that better than the grown men who made this rule. The hosts also brought up Luka Doncic challenging whether or not he should be eligible because he left for the birth of his daughter. And Chris Canty and the crew basically said, "You missed 17 games. You can miss 17 games. You missed a game because you got too many technical fouls." And that is a fair point. Luka missed games for things that were within his control. But the rule is not designed to punish players for getting technical fouls. It is designed to punish players for load management. It is designed to keep stars on the court. And it has worked to some extent. Players are playing more games. But the collateral damage is that players who get legitimately injured are being penalized for something that is not their fault. And that is where the rule is broken. Cease, one of the co-hosts, made a great point. She said, "It serves as an impediment to being able to get the next max contract." That's what it all comes down to. And she is exactly right. The players are not complaining because they care about MVP trophies. They are complaining because all NBA selections trigger super max contracts. They are complaining because missing 65 games can cost them tens of millions of dollars. And that is a legitimate concern. That is not vanity. That is not legacy. That is money. Real money. Life-changing money. And the average fan might not care about that, as C said. But the players care. And they should care. Because this is their livelihood. This is how they provide for their families. This is how they secure generational wealth. And if a player misses 65 games because of a freak accident, because of an appendectomy, because of a birth of a child, because of something that is completely out of their control, they should not be penalized for that. The other co-host, Evan, made a point about being a consumer. He said, "I'm concerned about the money that I have to pay for League Pass. And if you're not out there, it hampers my viewing experience." And that is a fair point. NT from a fan perspective. Fans pay good money to see stars play. They buy tickets. They buy jerseys. They subscribe to streaming services. And when stars sit out, it hurts the product. I get that. I understand that. But here is the thing. The 65-game rule is not solving that problem. It is just shifting the blame. Players who want to load manage are still going to load manage. They are just going to do it more strategically. They are going to play 65 games exactly and then sit. And the fans are still going to miss out on games. The difference is that now, players who get hurt are the ones paying the price. Not the load managers. The guys who actually want to play, who actually try to be out there every night, who get injured doing their job, they are the ones losing money. That is backwards. That is the opposite of what the rule should do. Wembanyama suggested a 75% threshold. That would be about 62 games. And I think that is more reasonable. It still requires players to play the vast majority of the season. It still punishes load management. But it gives players a little bit of a cushion. It acknowledges that freak injuries happen. It acknowledges that sometimes life gets in the way. And it does not punish players for things that are out of their control. Chris Canty said that the 65-game rule adds intrigue to the MVP race. He said we did not know which players would qualify based on the threshold. And that is true. It did add a layer of suspense. But is that the of suspense we want? Do we want to be wondering if the best player in the league is going to be ineligible for awards because he missed a few games with the flu? Do we want to be debating whether a player's appendectomy should cost him all NBA? That is not intrigue. That is absurdity. That is the NBA shooting itself in the foot. The hosts also talked about Victor Wembanyama being a great mathematician. He got up at the press conference and figured out all of these percentages off the top of his head. And that is funny. That is a great anecdote. But it also shows that Wembanyama is thinking about this issue in a way that most players are not. He is not just complaining. He is offering solutions. He is engaging with the rule. He is trying to make it better. And that is what a superstar should do. That is what a leader should do. And Chris Canty, who spent 11 years in the NFL, should understand that better than anyone. The NFL has a similar rule. Players have to play a certain number of games to qualify for certain accolades. But the NFL also has exceptions. They have a way to account for injuries. They have a way to account for extenuating circumstances. The NBA does not. The NBA has a hard line. 65 games. No exceptions. And that is the problem. So here is what I think should happen. The NBA should keep the 65-game threshold for the most part. But they should create a small panel of independent medical experts and former players who can grant exceptions for players who miss games due to freak injuries, medical emergencies, or family emergencies. It would not be a huge number of players. Maybe 1 or 2 per year. But it would ensure that players like Joel Embiid, who had an appendectomy, do not get penalized for something that was completely out of their control. It would ensure that players like Cade Cunningham, who had a collapsed lung, do not lose millions of dollars because of bad luck. and it would still punish the players who are healthy enough to play but choose not to. That is a fair compromise. That is a smart compromise. And Victor Wembanyama, at 21 years old, seems to understand that better than the grown men who run the league. Subscribe to the channel if you want real NBA analysis. Not the old head takes. Not the back in my day nonsense. Just the truth about a rule that is punishing the wrong players. And comment below. Should the 65-game rule stay, or should Wembanyama's 75% idea be adopted? I read every single comment. Now let me know your thoughts and get ready for the playoffs.